Sensing the aura of numerous divine beasts approaching from afar, Lin Chia's expression changed in the midst of battle. So many. Lin Chia had considered that the attackers of this island weren't limited to the 3 black alligators currently on the island. After all, this was the dragon's eye of the Great Xia's national fortune. Thinking that just 3 divine beast-level monsters could destroy this place was nothing but a fool's dream. However, he hadn't expected so many black alligators to be lurking around the island. This was an organized, planned attack operation. But how did such a massive number of black alligators bypass the front lines and arrive here? This doesn't look good. Bailey Pong Pong's expression grew solemn at the sight. Don't overthink it. Let's work together to kill this black alligator first and leave the rest to the commanders. Lin Chia shifted his gaze from the terrifying horde of black alligators back to the one surrounded by the 5 of them. Although this black alligator was also a divine beast, compared to the white marsh they had encountered in the virtual reconstruction world not long ago, there was still a considerable gap. It was somewhat troublesome for the current Nightfall team, but not undefeatable. Hee. The crazed Chao Yuan had no intention of thinking too much. In his eyes, there was only this wounded black alligator. The murderous blade aura slashed frantically at the black alligator's body surface. Blood gradually spread across its back. Surrounded by Lin Chia and the others, it seemed to realize it couldn't escape, so it abandoned its mission to charge deeper into the island. A fierce killing intent burst forth from its dark green eyeball. Although it hadn't been able to probe what was deep within the island, judging by the full mobilization of its companions, that no longer mattered. The black alligator's massive body swept across the ground, its house-sized mouth suddenly lunging toward the crazed Chao Yuan who had been harassing it. Though this guy couldn't inflict much damage, his constant slashing was irritating, not to mention that continuous strange laughter that buzzed like a fly by its ear. After successfully attracting the black alligator's aggression, the crazed Chao Yuan gradually retreated. Wrapped in murderous flame, he moved like an agile black butterfly, constantly dodging the black alligator's jaws while occasionally slashing to provoke it further. And Qingyu and Lin Chia exchanged glances, nodded and slammed their hands heavily onto the ground, fingers digging into the soil, transforming into vines that gradually penetrated the earth. Then one thick tree trunk after another erupted from the ground, frantically extending toward the sky. Each was dozens of meters thick, forming 10 towering pillars like a giant tree cage encircling the battlefield between the crazed Chao Yuan and the black alligator. Meanwhile, Lin Chia quickly bit his fingertip using blood as ink. His figure became a blur as he swiftly drew intricate patterns around the outside of the tree cage. The black alligator, entangled with the crazed Chao Yuan, sensed it was about to be trapped in the tree cage and immediately reacted, charging rapidly towards several not yet fully formed tree trunks. Quite clever. Bailey Pang Pang, standing in midair, snorted lightly upon seeing this. A massive black and white taiji diagram opened again, instantly enveloping the black alligator. Standing at the center of the black and white taiji diagram, his figure flickered and he floated to the opposite, kun, trigram. With one hand forming a seal, he softly murmured, "Qian kun reverse exchange." The black alligator, charging straight toward one end of the tree cage, stepped heavily on the Qian trigram. As Bailey Pong Pong's voice came, a light burst from the trigram below, swallowing the black alligator's form. The next moment, the black alligator, which had almost reached the edge of the tree cage, suddenly returned to the kun trigram on the other side, while its original position was taken by Bailey Pang Pang. The black alligator stood dazed for a while before finally reacting, turning its head to charge toward another side of the tree cage. This monster has intelligence but not much, and Qingyu, with his fingers dug into the ground, calmly concluded. The crazed Chao Yuan floated back to the black alligator's vicinity, holding his straight knife, somewhat provocatively beckoning to it with his finger. But this time the black alligator completely ignored him. Even as he chased closely behind, wildly slashing with his knife, it showed no intention of stopping. Boom! The black alligator rammed headfirst into one of the thick tree trunks of the cage, producing a muffled sound. Cracks spread across the trunk's surface. And Qingyu, with his fingers dug into the ground, grunted and narrowed his eyes slightly. Outside the tree cage, a massive blood-colored magic array was rapidly taking shape. The black alligator seemed to sense a hint of danger and continuously rammed against the tree cage, trying to break free. But the cage was sturdier than it had imagined. Despite several consecutive impacts, it couldn't completely break through, impacts that could have collapsed a tall mountain outside. 7 Night, I can't hold on much longer, and Qingyu's face turned slightly pale. Lin Chia's afterimage swept around the outside of the tree cage. When the last bloodline of the magic array was completed, he quickly stood up. It's ready. He stomped the ground forcefully, frantically infusing his mental power. The complex blood-colored array around the tree cage gradually lit up, turning a corner of the island's sky crimson. A terrifying forbidden spell aura spread wildly. As Lin Chia raised his right hand, countless red light points floated up from every corner of the magic array, intertwining and merging, quickly forming a blood-colored cleaver hundreds of meters long, suspended in the night sky. The cleaver's edge emanated a faint black mist. Vaguely, one could hear countless vengeful souls cursing and howling from within. Sensing the terrifying power contained in this blood-colored cleaver, the black alligator's ramming frequency increased, and panic appeared in its dark green eyeball. Bang! With a tremendous noise, the black alligator broke through one of the tree cage's trunks. And Qingyu violently spat out a mouthful of blood, and one of his fingers dug into the soil snapped. Just as the black alligator was about to break out of the tree cage, Lin Chia waved his hand in the air, and that blood-colored cleaver suspended in the night slashed down like lightning. Forbidden spell, blood-red guillotine. The cleaver's edge precisely struck the black alligator's neck, making a piercing screech. The black alligator's body instantly smashed a dramatic crater in the ground below, its entire head pinned to the ground by the cleaver. But even so, the blood-colored cleaver had only cut through 2/3 of its neck. Blood spread across the ground as it still frantically moved its body, trying to escape from under the cleaver. At that moment, a shade of night flashed above its head. Lin Chia, wielding the Amano-Murakumo sword, fiercely slashed the blade into the remaining half of its neck. The Amano-Murakumo's edge easily cut through the black alligator's body, severing its last trace of life. A huge head without facial features rolled several meters on the ground before slowly coming to a stop. Lin Chia slowly pulled the Amano-Murakumo sword from the black alligator's corpse, and a warm current flowed along the blade into his body. As this warmth flowed into his body, Lin Chia finally breathed a sigh of relief. This thing was finally dead. This black alligator was some kind of monster with an incredibly hard body. Frenzied Chao Yuan couldn't cut through it, and even forbidden spells couldn't kill it. If not for the Amano-Murakumo sword that could cut through anything, killing it would have required much more effort. And Qingyu pulled his hand from the ground and expressionlessly used a scalpel to cut off the broken finger bone. A mass of flesh squirmed at the bloody opening, and soon a new finger grew back. He who had half his body gnawed off just minutes ago had now basically returned to normal. He quickly walked to Lin Chia's side and curiously examined the black alligator's corpse, his eyes showing excitement that had been absent for a long time. "Can I have its body?" "Of course," Lin Chia nodded. And Qingyu immediately stepped forward, borrowed the Amano-Murakumo sword from Lin Chia's hand, quickly dismembered the black alligator, preserved it with ice and stuffed it into the nearby jungle. Just as Lin Chia was about to say something more, several black shadows streaked across the sky, heading straight into the depths of the island. Although they didn't know exactly where the Great Xia national fortune was on the island, these black alligators were clearly heading for it. With Li Kengqiang and Tang Yuxing not nearby, they had to stop the enemy no matter what. "We can't let them charge in like this." Lin Chia was about to charge forward with the Amano-Murakumo sword, but before he could take a step, a snow-white lightning bolt erupted from the deep mountains. This lightning swept across the sky, instantly binding the bodies of 3 black alligators, forcefully smashing them onto a nearby mountain peak with a deafening boom. Only then did Lin Chia and the others see clearly that it wasn't white lightning but a long white whip. A graceful figure in a white hoodie landed lightly between the 3 black alligators. With a gentle flick of her long whip, howling lightning danced around her. Her gaze swept over the 3 black alligators and fell on Lin Chia and the others in the distance. The corner of her mouth curved upward slightly. "Well done, little ones. If not for your impressive performance these past few days wearing down their patience, they wouldn't have become so impatient." Let me introduce myself, I'm Wang Qing, the 4th Commander-in-Chief of the Great Xia Night Watchers. Roar. The 3 black alligators knocked down by Wang Qing quickly rose and surrounded her, pairs of pale green eyes flickering in the darkness. Lin Chia and the others exchanged glances and were about to rush forward to help Wang Qing when a thunderous crack of the whip split the air, directly sending one black alligator flying. Dense white lightning intertwined into a vortex, trapping the 3 black alligators within. Wang Qing's voice drifted out. Don't worry, I can handle these few Makara. Your mission is complete. Leave the rest to us. Go deeper into the island, nowhere is safer than there. The sharp whip shadow danced in the lightning, and Wang Qing's voice was drowned out by the thunderclaps. Standing in the devastated forest, the members of the Night Curtain team all looked at Lin Chia in the center. After a moment of silence, he nodded. Let's do as Commander Wang says. Although Lin Chia and his team could handle the black alligators, one was already their limit. Now there were nearly 20 black alligators on the island beyond their capabilities. If they insisted on staying, they would only become a burden to the commanders. Successive explosions and black alligator roars came from various parts of the island. Lin Chia and his team immediately set off, heading straight toward the depths of the island. Boom. The black staff struck down and a deep rumbling echoed across the sky. A black alligator's shell was forcefully cracked with dense spiderweb fractures, embedding it deep into the ground. Nie Jinshan, dressed in a Zhongshan suit, calmly pulled the staff from the black alligator's head and looked behind him. From the churning waves, 4 more black alligators slowly emerged. Pairs of pale green eyeballs stared at Nie Jinshan, floating like ghost fires in the darkness. Nie Jinshan forcefully thrust his staff into the ground, sending out an invisible wave of energy. His pine tree-like figure stood tall on the shore, like a war god guarding the gates of heaven. The black alligators roared one after another, their hard, massive bodies charging fiercely toward Nie Jinshan at the island's edge. He suddenly pulled out his black staff and charged toward the alligator group like lightning. With a howling sound cutting through the air, his staff directly smashed the leading black alligator into the ground. As one black alligator was knocked down, several more charged forward. Their tentacle-like long tails swayed in the air, instantly binding Nie Jinshan's wrists. Several crimson giant mouths opened and closed, their teeth, capable of crushing the world's hardest rocks, frantically biting toward Nie Jinshan's body. Nie Jinshan let out a low growl, his staff tracing an afterimage in his hands. With one strike he hit the jaw of the closest giant mouth, directly flipping the entire body of that black alligator. The generated gale force unwound the tentacles around his wrists, and his figure left trails of afterimages in the air as he avoided the bites of the other 3 black alligators. Nie Jinshan stood firm amidst the encirclement of 4 black alligators, his sharp gaze sweeping the surroundings. Just as these black alligators were about to charge again, the rolling waves behind suddenly surged up. A white-robed figure holding a halberd stood on the crest of a wave, emanating a majestic pressure. Senior Nya, let me help you. Tang Yuxing leaped down from the waves. Nie Jinshan frowned and said in a deep voice, No need, I'm enough alone. Tang Yuxing, who was about to charge forward with his halberd, suddenly paused upon hearing this. But, Senior Nya, these are 4 divine beasts. I can help you. No need, Nie Jinshan repeated. Go help Kenqiang or Wang Qing. I can handle this. Tang Yuxing. Although these Makara weren't top tier in strength, they were still divine beasts at the divine realm. For an ordinary human at their peak, facing 2 simultaneously would be a life or death struggle. Yet Nie Jinshan was facing 4 Makara alone and refused to budge. Having guarded the great Xia national fortune with Nie Jinshan for so many years, Tang Yuxing knew how stubborn the 1st Commander-in-Chief could be. He gave up trying to persuade him and simply sighed. Then please be careful. Wait, just as Tang Yuxing was about to leave, Nie Jinshan seemed to remember something and spoke seriously. Yuxing, the big fish has already landed on the island. With your abilities, it's best not to show yourself. Stay in the nearby waters to prevent any escapees from getting away. The big fish has already landed on the island? Hearing this, Tang Yuxing narrowed his eyes and nodded, saying, Good, I understand. With these words, Tang Yuxing's figure flickered and he charged back into the churning sea, disappearing from sight. Sea Island's depths. In the dim valley, 2 black alligators silently crawled out from the shadows, while simultaneously, a figure rose from the ground like a ghost. Moon Huai hunched his body, his gaze sweeping the surroundings. Continuous rumbling sounds came from the distance, yet the valley remained deathly silent. The corner of his mouth curved slightly upward. Just as he had expected, with the entire Magra clan attacking the island, the true guardians of this place emerged one after another. Nia Jinshan, Li Qingqiang, Tang Yuxing, Wang Qing. These historical Nightwatcher commanders-in-chief, though transformed into souls, remained fused with the national fortune of Great Xia, their combat power no less than when they were alive. The 4 of them guarding this place had forcibly held back almost all the Magra. If he hadn't brought enough manpower, infiltrating this island would indeed have been as difficult as ascending to heaven. But now, the 4 commanders-in-chief were all engaged at the island's perimeter, so the core area protecting Great Xia's national fortune should be unguarded. Even if another Great Xia deity was hidden here with the 2 Magra creating a diversion and Moon Huai's own abilities, he was confident he could escape. Just being able to probe the final trump card of Great Xia's national fortune would make his journey worthwhile. Let me see where Great Xia's national fortune is hidden. Moon Huai took out an ancient compass from his bosom. The needle spun rapidly, quickly locking onto a direction. Following the compass's indication, he walked for about 2 minutes, finally stopping in a spacious clearing. Moon Huai looked down at the ground, his eyes narrowing slightly. It's underground. Moon Huai extended one palm, gently pressing it against the ground. The black lotus petals on his palm began to emit a faint, eerie light. Just then Moon Huai seemed to sense something and abruptly looked up toward the distance. Someone else. His brows furrowed slightly. From the dim forest, Lin Qier and his companions slowly emerged, their expressions extremely solemn. Following Wang Qing's instructions, Lin Qier and his group had walked straight to the deepest part of the island, only to encounter Moon Huai and 2 black alligators who had invaded from outside. It's him. Seeing Moon Huai's familiar face, Lin Qia's gaze intensified. The encounter with Moon Huai in the virtual reconstruction 2 days ago was still fresh in Lin Qia's memory. He knew that even though the ancient god church was now weak and in hiding, this oldest evil god was still lurking somewhere in Great Xia. However, he hadn't expected to encounter him again in just a few days. The last time he saw Moon Huai, he was a young man of about 30, but now standing before Lin Qier was a man in his 70s. Lin Qier recognized Moon Huai, but Moon Huai didn't recognize Lin Qier. His impression of Lin Qier and the others was merely a group of young Nightwatchers who had been playing wildly on the island for several days, with the highest being only at the Klein level, posing no threat to him whatsoever. Moon Huai's tightly knitted brows relaxed slightly. He had thought he'd encountered some troublesome figures, but they were just a bunch of kids. Kill them. Moon Huai waved his hand lightly, and the 2 black alligators charged out like lightning, fiercely rushing toward Lin Qier and his companions. Lin Qier gritted his teeth, gripping Zhan Bai and the Amino Murakumo sword in his hands, and said in a deep voice, "Prepare for battle." They had thought this would be the safest place on the entire island, but unexpectedly Moon Huai had infiltrated. The 4 commanders-in-chief were still intercepting the black alligator group at the island's perimeter and couldn't come to help. They had no choice but to fight to the death. Just as Lin Qier and his companions were about to charge forward, a cold snort suddenly echoed from the void. The moment this cold snort appeared, the 2 ferocious divine beast alligators charging toward them instantly froze in place like statues. The sea breeze swept through the dim forest, countless fallen leaves rose with the wind. As an invisible ripple spread out, they simultaneously suspended in mid-air. The twinkling stars visibly dimmed, and a chill rapidly enveloped the entire valley. Moon Huai, who was about to strike the ground with his palm, felt his body sink, becoming as heavy as if filled with lead. It was as if an invisible force was squeezing his muscles, attempting to take control of his physical body. Who is it? Sensing the changes in his body, Moon Huai's heart sank. He frowned, his mental power, at the human ceiling level, surged turbulently, trying to disperse the mysterious force enveloping his physical body. But the more he resisted, the stronger that force seemed to become. His entire body began to tremble slightly as he stood in place, and cracks rapidly spread across the ground beneath his feet. Bang! The ground beneath him exploded, and a spear shot out from the flying debris, its tip aimed directly at Moon Huai's brow. Moon Huai's pupils suddenly contracted. In this critical moment, Moon Huai's divine realm opened. The spear that had shot out from the ground suddenly dematerialized, passing through his skull weightlessly before disappearing into the sky as a point of starlight. Moon Huai's rigid body floated into midair along with the shattered ground, large beads of sweat rolling down his face, his complexion extremely pale. Just now he had brushed shoulders with death. The appearance of that spear had come without any warning. If his reaction had been half a beat slower, he would have been instantly killed. In that moment of distraction, the mysterious force controlling his body erupted again. Moon Huai felt invisible threads connecting to his body. His muscles no longer obeyed his commands, and his entire person hung in midair like a puppet, his expression extremely ugly. At the same time, the two black alligators that had frozen in front of Lin Chia and the others began to tremble uncontrollably, as if they had seen something extremely terrifying. Their enormous bodies, as if pressed down by a giant boulder, trembled as they prostrated themselves on the ground. Not just the two alligators in the valley, but at this moment all across the island, the black alligators that had been battling with the various Nightwatcher commanders-in-chief simultaneously stopped and gradually lay down on the ground. And what they were facing was the hole from which that spear had flown. In an instant, the island that had been engulfed in chaotic battle fell into dead silence. How is this possible? Seeing all these alligators kneeling down, Moon Huai, suspended in midair, had disbelief filling his eyes. The Magara were a race created by that person's own hand, pure-blooded divine beasts. Besides that person, how could they possibly kneel to anyone else? Who exactly was stationed beneath this island? Strange, all four commanders-in-chief have already left. So who is making a move now? Chao Yuan, seeing this scene, was equally puzzled. From Li Qingqiang's words, they knew that the Hero Spirit team was composed of the spirits of historical Nightwatcher commanders-in-chief. But before Yi Fan, there had only been 4 commanders in Nightwatcher history. So who was this person taking action now? Lin Chia's gaze swept over the 2 alligators prostrating on the ground, then looked at Moon Huai, who was unable to move in midair, and after pondering for a moment said, "Don't you think this ability seems familiar? It does look a bit familiar. Like I've seen it somewhere before." Bailey Pang Pang pondered thoughtfully. Lin Chia seemed to recall something, took a deep breath and slowly said, "The 4th King Ruin, Emperor of Dominance." Yes, Emperor of Dominance. He can control both mysteries and human bodies. That kid Wu Chuan had exactly the same ability back then. Bailey Pang Pang nodded repeatedly. Wasn't this supposed to be an extremely rare King Ruin? Besides Wu Chuan, it seems only the champion Marquis Hua Tsubing from back then had this King Ruin, right? Chao Yuan frowned slightly. Then, where did this Emperor of Dominance come from? And Qingyu pushed his glasses up, his expression somewhat complicated. The successive commanders-in-chief can rely on soul techniques to survive within the national fortune until today. Is it possible that the one down there is? Hearing in Qingyu's reminder, everyone seemed to realize something, their eyes gradually widening. At the same time, Yu Huai, whose body was being controlled and suspended in midair, also seemed to realize something and exclaimed, "Emperor of Dominance? Are you Hua Tsubing?" Whoosh. Boom. Under the dim sky, that blood-stained ferocious spear fell like a meteor, crashing onto the ground with a thunderous impact, and a fierce wind instantly swept through the entire valley. A majestic deep voice slowly echoed throughout the valley. "What vermin dares to covet my great Xia's national fortune?" The moment he heard this voice, Yu Huai's heart sank to the bottom. It really was him. Yu Huai had been at the human ceiling level for over a decade and carried the divine ruin of that person. He was very confident in his own strength. Even if all the human ceiling experts in today's world were gathered together, he was confident he would rank in the top 3. Even when facing a major god's pursuit, he was confident he could escape unscathed. But ironically, he now had to face Hua Tsubing, the first chief of the Demon Suppression Bureau, the first generation Emperor of Dominance, humanity's first ceiling expert, the champion Marquis renowned through countless ages. Hua Tsubing. He was the starting point of humans matching gods with mortal bodies, and also the earliest origin of the Night Watchers of later generations. If not for the congenital defect brought by the Emperor of Dominance, he would absolutely have been the first person in history to achieve godhood. With just one move, his opponent had taken control of the entire Mojiao clan, and even his own body was under the other's dominance, yet he hadn't even seen the other's shadow. No matter how confident Yu Huai was in his own strength, he absolutely did not believe he could be a match for this person. He could only escape. Hua Xiubing's appearance extinguished all of Yu Huai's fighting spirit. He gritted his teeth and several black lotus flowers floated out from his sleeve, attaching themselves to his limbs and the center of his forehead. These black lotus petals were some unknown items. With a flash of dark light, Yu Huai's form actually forcibly broke free from the Emperor of Dominance, effect and sped like lightning toward the outside of the valley. Did this marquis say you could leave? The majestic voice sounded again. Clay. The moment the words fell, the spear embedded in the ruins transformed into a streak of light, closely pursuing Yu Huai's figure. The spear tore through the sky, emitting a deafening roar, catching up to Yu Huai in an instant. Precise spear rays shot out one after another, shattering the 5 black lotus petals attached to Yu Huai's body. Yu Huai's pupils contracted sharply. These black lotuses were items given to him by that person years ago, and could be considered divine artifacts in a sense, yet they were so easily shattered. Without the protection of the black lotuses, that familiar sense of dominance surged through Yu Huai's body again. He felt his body becoming heavier bit by bit, but at this critical moment he had no choice but to fight desperately. Yu Huai roared in anger, unleashing all his mental power, his speed reaching the extreme. Since all these souls could only exist by relying on national fortune, as long as he left this island, without the support of national fortune, they would not be able to pursue him. Without using national fortune to wage a battle of fate, this island was a prison for all of them. Yu Huai believed that for the sake of a mere fleeing human sealing expert like himself, they would not expend such an enormous amount of national fortune to initiate a battle of fate. In other words, as long as he left this island before his body was completely dominated, he still had hope of escape. As the coastline gradually enlarged in his sight, the light in Yu Huai's eyes grew brighter and brighter. His figure swept past the edge of the island, shooting straight into the sea. The smile at the corner of Yu Huai's mouth suddenly froze. Even after leaving the island, the power of the Emperor of Dominance continued to control his body. He had overlooked one thing. The fact that Hua Xiubing could not leave this island did not mean that his divine ruin could only cover this island. Without leaving this island, Tang Yuxing's ability could extend to the sea dozens of miles away to catch fish for Lin Qie and the others. So how vast must the coverage of Hua Xiubing's Emperor of Dominance be? Damn it. Yu Huai felt his body gradually becoming heavier, his expression extremely ugly. At the same time, the churning seawater below suddenly surged skyward, thick columns of water rushing toward the sky. Yu Huai felt his vision blur, the starry sky and ocean inverting in his perspective. Endless seawater poured down from above, and a white-robed figure holding a halberd slowly walked through the air. Yu Huai. Tang Yuxing narrowed his eyes, fierce killing intent sweeping out wildly. It's time to settle our score. More than 40 years ago, Yu Huai had schemed to ambush Baize. Although Tang Yuxing was just a child who understood nothing at the time, it didn't mean the matter was over. From Li Qingqiang's account, he had long known the truth of that year. During his years as the commander-in-chief of the Night Watchers, he had constantly sent people to search for Yu Huai's whereabouts, wanting to take revenge, but by then the ancient God Church had already grown powerful, and this behind-the-scenes mastermind had disappeared from public view, becoming the deepest shadow of the ancient God Church. The vengeance for his mother's murder remained unfulfilled in life, but now as a heroic spirit he encountered Yu Huai again. This time he would kill Yu Huai no matter what. Deep within the island, in the surging flow of Great Xia's national fortune, Hua Xiubing, sitting cross-legged in the center, made a slight sound of surprise, opened his eyes, his expression somewhat puzzled. Tang Yuxing and him, they have a grudge? Gan Jiangwan, who was waiting at the side, promptly spoke up. Tang Yuxing's mother, who was the only Baize in Great Xia at that time, was killed by him. Hua Xiubing's brow slightly relaxed as he casually waved his hand and said indifferently, "If that's the case, let him end this karmic connection with his own hands." "It's you." Monthly Sephora also recognized Tang Yuxing, his brows furrowing tightly. Under the effect of Emperor's dominion, his speed gradually slowed, finally coming to a halt in front of Tang Yusheng. Just as monthly Sephora was about to despair, the dominion shackles binding him suddenly loosened. Control over his own body returned to him. Monthly Sephora was clever. He looked back toward the island, anger flashing in his eyes. You want to use my death to resolve his inner conflict? Monthly Sephora snorted coldly. He understood clearly that having intruded upon the place guarding the national fortune of Great Xia, Hu Tubing would never let him leave. The reason for releasing the restraints now was simply because he wanted Tang Yusheng to kill him with his own hands. If he tried to bypass Tang Yusheng and escape directly, the Emperor's dominion would activate again and erase him on the spot. Although Hu Tubing's action gave him a chance to breathe, the feeling of being manipulated by others filled monthly Sephora with rage. He had always been the one manipulating others. When had he, the founder of the ancient God Church, ever suffered such humiliation? You think you've already won? Monthly Sephora coldly stared at Tang Yusheng before him and spoke grimly. I destroyed your mother back then and now I can destroy you too. Hearing these words, rare anger climbed into Tang Yusheng's eyes. He gripped his halberd tightly as the ocean suspended in the sky seemed to boil, emitting a thunderous roar. His figure flashed into a white shadow, carrying massive waves as he lunged toward monthly Sephora. Tang Yusheng's form flashed repeatedly, a massive cold light slashing toward monthly Sephora's neck like lightning. The latter narrowed his eyes as the halberd turned into a phantom, passing lightly through his body while simultaneously flying straight out of Tang Yusheng's hand. Tang Yusheng seemed unsurprised by this. With a lift of his fingertip, the waves behind him transformed into countless water blades, surging toward monthly Sephora in overwhelming numbers. I want to see how many things you can phase through at once, Tang Yusheng said calmly. Under the terrifying number of water blades, dozens sliced through monthly Sephora's body every second, becoming nothing. As the waves above Tang Yusheng's head grew more turbulent, more and more water blades fell, and monthly Sephora's expression grew increasingly grim. You've studied me? Monthly Sephora asked in a deep voice. During my years as Commander-in-Chief of the Night Watchers, I wanted to kill you every day. To find your location and weaknesses, I collected vast amounts of material and poured through ancient texts, waiting for this day. Tang Yusheng caught the automatically returning halberd, as pale golden patterns appeared on his cheeks. Today I will kill you. Tang Yusheng roared, his form rapidly expanding. His slender limbs stepped through nothingness in midair, a pair of long horns like white lightning cutting through the sky. As complex and magnificent pale gold patterns lit up across his body, the suspended seawater in the sky churned into a terrifying vortex several kilometers wide. This was Tang Yusheng's true form, the White Marsh. Dense water blades fell from the sky, almost blocking the entire sky. Hundreds or thousands of water blades cut through monthly Sephora's body every second, turning to nothing. He was almost submerged in seawater. Under such a terrifying density of water blades, even monthly Sephora, who had reached the ceiling of human potential, couldn't continuously and precisely phase through every blade about to land on him. Blade after blade cut across his skin, leaving bloody gashes. His expression gradually became ferocious as several black lotus petals floated out. As monthly Sephora struggled increasingly to defend himself, Tang Yusheng's form suddenly burst through the curtain of rain, his massive forelegs stomping heavily on monthly Sephora's chest. Boom! A terrifying ripple of air spread out, causing the surrounding seawater to pause in midair. Monthly Sephora's form shot across the sky like a meteor, violently crashing into the surging seawater. The White Marsh was already one of Great Xia's top divine beasts, and at Tang Yusheng's level his raw power was no less than any major deity. This stomp could crush an ordinary human at the ceiling level to pieces. But monthly Sephora was an experienced veteran. Before Tang Yusheng's stomp landed, he had covered his chest with several black lotus petals, absorbing most of the force. Even so, the terrifying concussive force still damaged his internal organs, causing him to violently spit blood as he fell helplessly through the sky. Seeing monthly Sephora's body fall into the sea, Tang Yusheng in his White Marsh form instantly disappeared from the sea surface. Immediately after, the sea began to roar and surge wildly. The ocean was Tang Yusheng's battlefield. No one could defeat him here. Lin Qier and the others climbed a high peak to observe the distant battlefield. They saw violent rain pouring onto the turbulent sea surface, as if two apocalyptic beasts were fighting to the death beneath the waves, raising storms that nearly submerged the entire island. Fortunately, whenever a huge wave rolled toward the island, it seemed to be torn apart by an invisible hand, automatically dispersing in midair and turning into heavy rain that watered the island's trees. Lin Chia looked back at the spear thrust into the ground, his expression full of awe. Only now did he truly realize the terror of Emperor's dominion. As long as General Hua Tsubing wished it, not even a drop of water or grain of sand could enter the island. The absolute dominion over all worldly matter, this was the true emperor. The violent storm at sea continued for a full 10 minutes before gradually subsiding. The mist shrouding the night sky gradually dispersed, and a blood-stained figure in white robes, holding a halberd in one hand and an elderly head in the other, slowly emerged from the waves. Tang Yusheng looked extremely exhausted, but his eyes were unprecedentedly bright. He threw monthly Sephora's head to the ground, thrust his halberd into the beach, clasped his hands and bowed deeply toward the island. Junior Tang Yusheng, thanks the Marquis for this opportunity. It's nothing. Hua Tsubing's calm voice sounded without the previous oppressive feeling, replaced by a hint of appreciation. Remember to retrieve and destroy his body as well, just to be safe. Yes. Tang Yusheng nodded respectfully. Whoosh. The blood-stained spear thrust into the ground suddenly vibrated violently, automatically ejecting into the air, tracing a long arc before steadily falling into a crack in the earth, disappearing into the island's depths. At the same time, the dozen or so black alligators crouching in the valley visibly faded, turning into wisps of smoke that followed the spear into the crevice. Phew, it's finally over, Bailey Pang Pang sighed in relief. It's a pity the Marquis didn't want to appear in person. It would have been nice to see the legendary champion Marquis with our own eyes, Chao Yuan lamented. Just as Lin Chia was about to open his mouth to say something comforting, a voice came from the crevice. Lin Chia, come down. When Lin Chia heard Hua Tsubing's voice again, he was stunned. Just me? The other members of the Night Curtain team all turned to look at him. Lin Chia nodded and walked straight toward the crevice in the ground. As Lin Chia's figure leaped down, the thick layers of soil flashed before his eyes. In the dimness below his feet, a point of dazzling golden light flickered and rapidly expanded in his vision. A scorching, powerful aura enveloped his entire being. It felt like a burning furnace beneath his feet. The deeper he descended, the harder it became to breathe. After falling for dozens of seconds, Lin Chia's feet touched the ground. Looking up from this position, the crevice was almost invisible to the naked eye. General Hua Tsubing was actually able to reach out from such a deep place below the surface? Lin Chia was utterly shocked. He looked around. This was a naturally formed spacious cave. In the center of the cave, a golden river flowed magnificently from the darkness, like a roaring dragon, rushing past above Lin Chia's head. Before it, Lin Chia's figure was as small as an ant. So this is the full view of Great Xia's national fortune, Lin Chia murmured, gazing at the torrent of national fortune. Lin Chia. A voice came from within the torrent. A figure solid as bedrock, wearing broken armor, stood firmly in the center of the national fortune current, looking down at Lin Chia below. Before him, that blood-stained spear stood like a sea-calming divine needle amidst the rolling national fortune. Lin Chia immediately bowed respectfully. Junior Lin Chia pays respects to the champion Marquis. No need for formalities. Hua Tsubing spoke calmly, his eyes fixed on Lin Chia as if observing something. After a brief silence, Lin Chia couldn't help but ask. Marquis, may I ask why you called me here? Nothing urgent. I just wanted to see you. Hearing this, Lin Chia froze in place. Timmy, what's there to see about me? Just as Lin Chia was about to say something more, Hua Tsubing spoke again. Have you married Jialon yet? Jialon. The confusion in Lin Chia's eyes deepened. How would Hua Tsubing know about his relationship with Jialon? Not yet, she's still in deep sleep. Lin Chia paused, then tentatively asked, May I ask, Marie, how do you know about Jialon? Hua Tsubing looked at Lin Chia with a complex expression. After a moment he shook his head. I have known Jialon for thousands of years. Well, since you two are not yet married, perhaps the time is not right. How are you and your brothers doing on the island? We're doing very well on the island, thank you for your concern, Marquis. Hua Tsubing stood firmly above the national fortune current and nodded slightly. Very good. You may go now. Leaving already? Lin Chia was stunned for a while. Despite having many questions, he couldn't bring himself to ask them and could only bow respectfully. Junior takes his leave. As Lin Chia was about to turn and leave, Hua Tsubing, standing on the national fortune current, looked at his back and spoke again. Lin Chia, let me give you one more piece of advice. Lin Chia stopped in his tracks. Hua Tsubing's voice echoed in his ears. All sails raised end as clouds and mist, barefoot through wilderness to question one's true heart. All sails raised end as clouds and mist, barefoot through wilderness to question one's true heart? Lin Chia repeated softly. Though he didn't understand the meaning behind Hua Tsubing's words, he still bowed politely. Thank you, Marquis. Lin Chia's figure flickered and left the national fortune current, disappearing beyond the crevice. At the edge of the underground cave, Gong Yangwan, dressed in court attire, slowly emerged. Looking at Lin Chia's departing figure, she softly asked, Marquis, will he understand what you said? Hua Tsubing withdrew his gaze, his eyes gradually closing, and said faintly, when he needs to understand, he will naturally understand. When Lin Chia returned to the surface, Bai Li Pangpang and the others immediately gathered around him curiously. Chia, what did General Hua say to you? Lin Chia's expression was somewhat strange. After hesitating for a moment, he said, he asked if Jialon and I were married yet. What? Bai Li Pangpang said suspiciously, who would have thought General Hua was such a gossip? What else? And Qingyu asked incredulously. Then he asked how we were doing on the island, and that was it. Chao Yuan pondered for a moment. It seems that after guarding this place for thousands of years, even General Hua would feel a bit bored. As they were talking, Li Qingqiang's figure emerged from the deep forest, smiling unhurriedly. What? Have you already met the Marquis? Yes, we have. Spearbro, did you all know someone was watching this island? Was letting us play wildly for so many days just a decoy to make them lower their guard. Bai Li Pangpang couldn't help asking when he saw Li Qingqiang. Yes, but not entirely. Li Qingqiang shrugged. This heart trial training is indeed like that. By the way, what's the background of this Yu Huai? And Qingyu's gaze swept over the place where the black alligator had been. This is a complete divine beast clan. How did he command them and enter Great Xia so silently? These creatures are called Makara, Li Qingqiang explained. Makara are divine beasts from Indian mythology. Although not strong in direct combat, they possess extreme stealth abilities and vision comparable to the thousand-mile eye, making them very suitable for infiltration operations. I estimate they were probably sent into Great Xia territory long ago, hiding in a sea trench. Without careful searching, they're basically undetectable. As for Yu Huai, do you know Brahma? Brahma, the supreme god of the Indian divine temple? Chao Yuan asked in surprise. Yes, Brahma is India's supreme god and one of the creator gods. According to legend, he is the creator of this world as well as its destroyer. Legends tend to exaggerate, so take it with a grain of salt. However, Brahma does indeed possess powers similar to a creator. He can create matter from nothing and can also return existing matter to nothingness. It's said that during the Great Mist disaster 100 years ago, the three supreme Indian gods ordered the sacrifice of their people using secret methods to protect the divine temple. Although Brahma was reluctant, he still performed the sacrifice for the continuation of the divine nation. Afterward, Brahma was tormented by his conscience and his divine soul became unstable. With no alternative, he split his soul in two. One half inherited the power of creation and became a purely benevolent god, while the other half bore his evil thoughts and guilt, inherited the power of annihilation and became a god of destruction. The creator Brahma and the destroyer Brahma fought each other for months. Eventually, the former prevailed, achieved mental clarity and continued to rule the divine temple, while the latter fled into the mist. For the past 100 years, there has been no trace of the destroyer Brahma. His only proxy is Yu Huai. When the Great Xia had no divine guardians, it was absolutely the perfect untouched land for the world-ending Brahma to target. So he recruited Yu Huai as his agent who carried out his will, establishing the ancient god church within Great Xia's borders. He attempted to guide numerous evil gods to gather in Great Xia and tame its citizens as their followers, using this to stage a comeback and return to the Temple of Gods. Li Qingqiang clapped his hands and smiled. However, now that Great Xia's gods have awakened and with Yu Huai dead, the ancient god church has largely collapsed. His plan is destined to fail. So that's how the ancient god church came to be. After hearing this explanation, Lin Qie and the others finally understood. Li Qingqiang glanced at the sky and said, I heard you killed a Makara, which is quite impressive. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow, Tang Yuxing will continue your potential training. Recalling the scene of Tang Yuxing transforming into Bai Zai and beating Yu Huai, everyone trembled inwardly. They exchanged glances and smiled bitterly. Yes, sir. After everyone dispersed, and Qingyu immediately returned to the forest, dragged the dismembered black crocodile corpse back to the air raid shelter, and began preparing various surgical instruments for a long-awaited dissection. Seeing this, Lin Qie and the others consciously took detours back to their rooms. Once Qingyu began his dissection, he wouldn't stop midway. Judging by the current time, he would likely pull an all-nighter. Lin Qie lay back on his bed but didn't immediately fall asleep. Instead, he sank his consciousness into the god's mental hospital in his mind. It was already late at night and the hospital was completely silent. The staff dormitory lights were out and all the lights in the ward were turned off. In the dark, empty courtyard, Lin Qie, wearing a white coat, walked straight toward the director's office. He opened the secret door to the dungeon and quickly walked in. Walking through the dim corridors of the dungeon, looking at the empty cells on both sides, Lin Qie felt a long familiar sensation. Since his strength had increased, Nightfall rarely received missions dealing with mysteries. Most of the time they were dealing with various divine realms and agents in the mist, so it had been a long time since a new mystery had been imprisoned in these cells to become his attendant. From Li Qingqiang's words earlier, Lin Qie already knew these black crocodiles were Makaras from Indian mythology, legitimate divine beasts. Although their combat power couldn't compare to the thunder beast he already possessed, they were special forces with clairvoyance. If he could recruit one as an attendant, it could prove useful in many situations. Moments later, Lin Qie slowly stopped at the door of a cell. Behind the cell, a shadow that occupied almost the entire floor took shape, transforming into a black crocodile with two pale green eyeballs extending from its tail, its size several times smaller than in the outside world. Lin Qie glanced at the panel on the cell wall. Criminal choice. As a mythological creature killed by your own hands, you have the right to decide the fate of its soul. Option 1. Directly erase its soul, making it completely vanish from the world. Option 2. Let its fear value of you reach 60, and you can hire it as a hospital attendant to care for patients while providing you with protection to a certain extent. Current fear value. Seeing the Makara's fear value, Lin Qie raised an eyebrow, seemingly surprised. In his impression, while the Makara was indeed killed by his own hands, it was still a divine beast. How could it so easily develop fear? He had merely killed it with a sword and cleaver, surely it couldn't be that fragile? Had he done anything else that would cause it to fear him? Lin Qie pondered for a moment, then suddenly recalled the scene of him singing to it in the dark forest, dominating its soul. Lin Qie coughed lightly, his expression somewhat embarrassed. Regardless, the Makara's fear value reaching the threshold was a good thing. At least he wouldn't need to use Wang Kai, his trump card. Lin Qie skillfully grabbed at the air and a contract appeared in his palm. Under the influence of the fear value, after some intimidation and enticement, the Makara yielded and tremblingly extended its hand, preparing to press its print on the contract. Just then something unexpected happened. Before the Makara's claw could touch the contract, the latter suddenly transformed into a ball of intense fire, rapidly burning in midair. The scorching flames burned Lin Qie's fingertips. He frowned and quickly released the contract. The burning contract slowly floated to the ground, turning into black ashes and disappearing without a trace. How could this happen? Lin Qie's brows furrowed, his eyes full of confusion. A self-immolating contract was something he had never seen in the hospital before. Could it be that the hospital itself was unwilling to let him sign a contract with the Makara? Lin Qie suspiciously looked at the Makara in the cell. The latter seemed to sense the unusual atmosphere and instinctively backed up several steps, growling deeply. Lin Qie refused to give up and grabbed another contract. This time, before he could even hand the contract to the Makara, it burst into flames again. Looking at the contract continuously burning to ashes on the ground, Lin Chia felt inexplicably uneasy. He looked at the Makara in the cell again and after a moment's hesitation, gently raised his hand. "Forget it, you should just disappear." The Makara was a species under the world-ending Brahma, who was undoubtedly an evil god. Perhaps there was an inherent problem with the souls of this species that prevented them from becoming attendants. Lin Chia didn't insist. After all, the hospital already had numerous attendants, and one Makara didn't mean much to Lin Chia. As soon as the words fell, the Makara in the cell suddenly began to expand like a balloon filled with air, and then violently exploded. Splattered flesh and blood hit all four walls of the cell, quickly disappearing as if invisible mouths were devouring its body. Watching the Makara's remains gradually disappear, Lin Chia's uneasiness lessened slightly. He stood there for a long time before turning to leave the dungeon. Under the dark night sky, Lin Chia, wearing his white coat, walked step by step through every inch of the hospital grounds, the ward, staff dormitory, courtyard, even the large iron gate at the entrance. Everything was quiet and peaceful without any abnormalities. Standing at the door of the staff dormitory, he could hear Li Yifei's earth-shaking snores, giving him a strange sense of reassurance. The last trace of doubt in his heart was temporarily dispelled. Lin Chia resisted the urge to drag Li Yifei out of bed in the middle of the night to have a few drinks with him. After wandering around the courtyard for a long time, he finally withdrew his consciousness from the god's mental hospital. The next few days were no different from Lin Chia and the others' experiences from earlier. Playing cards, mahjong, singing, pole dancing, competing to see who could circle the island fastest while doing a handstand, as well as some entertainment activities that only someone with a decade of brain damage could come up with. The only change was that Tang Yusheng's potential training resumed normally in the mornings, which meant that all the above activities were recovery activities conducted after experiencing a deadly beating and soaking in medicinal baths for 3 hours. Time flowed on and half a month passed in the blink of an eye. In 4 large vats emitting steam and medicinal fragrance, Lin Chia and the others floated on their backs, their injuries gradually healing and fatigue completely disappearing. Phew! Bailey Pang Pang floated like a piece of braised pork in the tomato soup vat, gazing up at the azure sky and moaning comfortably. "I have to say, after soaking in these medicinal baths for so many days, I really feel my abilities have improved. Gun Brothers' secret formula is amazing, isn't it?" In front of the bonfire burning beneath the vats, Tang Yusheng crouched silently, adding firewood to Bailey Pong Pong's vat. After cooking Lin Chia and the others for half a month, Li Qiangqiang seemed to find it boring, so he voluntarily handed this rare experience to Tang Yusheng. Now Tang Yusheng not only had to personally beat Lin Chia and the others half to death and drag them ashore, but also was responsible for soaking them in the medicinal vats and adding firewood regularly to maintain the fire. Tang Yusheng didn't say much about it, just silently played the role of caretaker. Of course, Tang Yusheng responded calmly to Bailey Pong Pong's comment. Uncle Li has his own unique insights when it comes to developing human potential. Otherwise he wouldn't have created something as extraordinary as the Ghost God Inducer. The Ghost God Inducer was created by Gun Brother? Tang Yusheng's words surprised all 4 people in the vat simultaneously. "You didn't know?" Tang Yusheng asked in return. Each generation of Commander-in-Chief has made enormous contributions to the Night Watchers. The first Commander-in-Chief, Elder Nye Jinshan, ventured alone into Kunlun Void and obtained from the Queen Mother the foundation of the Night Watchers, which is that star blade, in your hands. The second Commander-in-Chief, Uncle Li, created the Ghost God Inducer, and installed it in the Night Watcher's emblem, giving all Night Watchers dignity and gentleness. The fourth Commander-in-Chief, Wang Qing, wove cloaks for the Night Watchers that could function in any extreme environment, serving as a shield, symbolizing glory and identity. Lin Chia and the others were stunned. The straight blade, the emblem, the cloak. From the moment they entered the training camp, Lin Chia and the others knew about the Night Watcher's 3-piece set, but only now did they understand how much effort was hidden behind these 3 items. Behind each item was the condensation of an era, and it was this century of accumulation that created today's 1,000+ Night Watchers of Great Xia. After a moment, Bailey Pang Pang couldn't help but ask, "Then, Senior Tang Yusheng, what is your achievement?" Tang Yusheng was silent for a moment, then shook his head. "What I've done is not worth mentioning." Seeing that Tang Yuxing was unwilling to elaborate, Bailey Pang Pang tactfully didn't pursue the matter. Instead, it was Qingyu who asked a question that had been weighing on his mind for a long time. I heard Gun Brother say before that only at the brink of death, by refining bone and blood into a weapon, merging body with arms and supplementing with special techniques and instruments, can one create a heroic spirit attached to a weapon. But isn't this so-called near-death state too harsh for night watchers? How do you manage it? What do you mean? Chao Yuan didn't quite understand. Let me put it this way, once someone at the commander-in-chief level takes action, they're likely facing a deity far stronger than themselves. If so, trying to ensure they can escape from desperate situations with just a breath of life left, return to Night Watcher's headquarters, and have their soul refined into a weapon seems unrealistic. Even if they could escape from desperate situations, they might not be near death and could still be saved upon return. If they can't escape, they face death in battle. Lin Chia understood Qinyu's meaning and added, fundamentally, the near-death condition probably can't be met every time. You're right, Tang Yuxing nodded. It's difficult to ensure every commander-in-chief is in a near-death state at the end of their life, so we have special methods. Special methods? Do you know why only the commanders-in-chief of Great Xia's Night Watchers become heroic spirits? Lin Chia and the others shook their heads. One reason is that the process of transforming from a remnant soul into a heroic spirit is extremely painful. Refining bone and blood into a weapon is not as simple as it sounds. And once you become a heroic spirit, you can no longer enter reincarnation. You can only endure eternal torment within Great Xia's national fate. No one except the commander-in-chief of Great Xia's Night Watchers has the obligation to bear such suffering. Second is the near-death state you mentioned. Tang Yuxing slowly explained, since the establishment of the Night Watchers, there has been a forbidden drug. Once consumed, it settles and accumulates in the depths of the soul. When the consumer dies in battle, the drug's power is activated, putting the consumer's soul into a dormant state. This state can generally last for 72 hours. Although life signs disappear and they appear dead, as long as the body is recovered and the drug residue in the soul's depths is activated with secret methods, the remnant soul can be awakened again. After awakening, the remnant soul forcibly extends life for 10 hours, and simultaneously they enter a near-death state. So the reason successive commanders-in-chief could become heroic spirits after death is because they took this forbidden drug? Bailey Pang Pang suddenly understood. That's right. But this forbidden drug is only effective for 24 hours, which means we must take it daily at fixed times to ensure we're within the drug's effective period when we die in battle. Elder Nya, Uncle Li, myself, Wang Qing, including Yi Fan whom you know, we all took this drug every day during our lives. Tang Yuxing seemed to recall something, a bitter smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. After swallowing this drug, there are side effects within half an hour, that kind of torment from the depths of the soul. Not everyone can endure it. Great Xia. Night Watcher's headquarters. Ring ring ring. At the urgent alarm, Suiqing, who had been seriously reviewing documents at his desk, came back to his senses and reached out to stop the alarm. He looked at the time and slowly pulled open a locked drawer at the corner of his desk. Inside the drawer was a heavy medicine box with gray pills neatly arranged in the recesses. Looking at these gray pills, Suiqing sighed helplessly. He took out one pill, swallowed it, and lay back in his office chair, seemingly waiting for something,